Well, hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Unlocked Show. I'm your host, Tracy Wilson. We're running a little bit late today, but what do we worry about that? We don't. We just get on with it and we go live when we need to. So I'm just going to adjust my camera slightly, and Cena's today is going to be all about live show production tools. What are the flaming tools that you need? This show today is going to be dedicated to my good friend, Sylvia Nugent. So Sylvia was here with me this morning and we were having a little bit of a chat about, starting your own live show and or podcast. And I asked her a question. I asked her, what's the biggest question you've got about starting your own live show or your own podcast? And she rattled off a whole lot of stuff that was in relation to the tools that we should be using or can use. And she asked the question, particularly for those people that are starting out, what tools and resources can I actually use that are not going to break the budget? So with that in mind, like I said, I want to dedicate today's show to Sylvia and also to all of you guys that are out there, guys and girls that are out there that actually want to start your own live show or your own podcast, but maybe budget, maybe the knowing what to do and how to do it and what tools you should actually use is actually preventing you from, using your voice to spread your great messages around the world. Today's show is absolutely for you. And if you hang around to the end, I'm actually going to share with you a link that is going to have the ability for you to be able to download my ultimate guide, my ultimate list of live show production tools. So hang about for that because I'm going to give you guys a link and you're going to be able to get that absolutely free. And then I'll also share with you where you can get some more information to help you go live and start your own live show. So let's make sure that we cover all of those things off. And like with every other show, as you guys know, the show is live. So if you want to chat with me, which I know heaps of you guys do, because after every show, I go back and actually have a look at the comments and I can see loads of you, typing profusely. However, I don't always see them here in the studio. And the reason for that is you haven't allowed StreamYard, which is the platform that I choose to use, you haven't allowed them to see your comments. So even though you're typing your little hearts out, I'm actually not getting those questions here in the studio. So make sure you click the button to allow StreamYard to see you in the first place so that I too can see your comments as you are typing and you are asking me questions, and that way I can actually answer them for you. The second thing is, if you are watching this on YouTube, make sure that you click the notification bell and you make sure that you like or you subscribe so that you don't miss out on any of these shows. In the next wee while, what I'm going to be doing is sharing a whole lot of information for you guys to be able to share your skills, your knowledge, your information with a much wider audience by creating your own live show. So make sure that you subscribe so that you don't miss out on any of that information. So with that being said, let's kick off today's show, right? Let's get us moving with what the heck is this ultimate toolkit that I speak of? What are some of the things that you could and should be using to get yourself started? The very first thing that I would say is I'm going to talk about mindset. And I talk about this, a lot. And it's really, one of those things that you need to get yourself into the right frame of mind to be able to start your own live show. Because one of the things that you want to make sure that you do, particularly if you're doing a live show, is that you schedule in a time. So this is kind of not a tool or a resource as such, but it is really something that is going to help you to ensure that you do your show on the regular. Because if you do not get it into your schedule, the likelihood of it happening or the likelihood of something else coming up, or you're just waking up not feeling like you want to do it, that is going to hijack you and you will not go live. So like today, had a little technical hiccup. I could have said, oh, well, damn this, I'm not going to do a show today. But however, you still go live. Why? Because you have it firmly scheduled into your schedule so that every single week, if it's, Wednesday and Friday, like it is for me, come hell or high water, I go live. So you want to make sure that you do that, get that into your diary and get yourself into the right frame of mind, because then once you do that and you know that every single week, for me, 10 a.m. on a Wednesday and a Friday, I know that that is my time to be going live. So something kind of happens, you get yourself into a rhythm and a routine, you create this habit, and all of a sudden your mind kicks into gear and you're ready to go, and it's showtime, baby, and off you go. The second thing I want to say is to create yourself a dedicated space. So somewhere within your home, and I've seen, those dedicated people that just get started, they've got nowhere in their home to do it. What do? I've seen people jump on live shows, podcasts and live shows, even in their car or in their wardrobes. So if they can do that, then you can too. So just find a space in your home that's relatively quiet, that's not going to, have a lot of traffic, walk through traffic. For me, it is a space in my apartment that's down the back of the apartment. It is a little bit open here. However, I do my show on a day where there's nobody else at home. There's just me. So it's cool to be able to do that. And as you've heard on some other shows, before I kind of got really set up properly, I had an open space behind me, and we've had a few little hiccups when my son used to live at home. He'd come walking out in his underwear and people go, "Oh my God, who's that?" In the background in their underwear. So a few little, laughable moments which can happen if you don't create, the right sort of environment or space. On that note, when you're creating your environment or your space, you want to think about, what sort of look do you want to create on your show? And in the early days, I had your photo bombing, someone saying here, yeah, I've had a few of those moments where the kids have come around and have done stuff like that. We don't get too hung up on it. We don't take ourselves too seriously. It is what it is, and we have a bit of fun with it. But behind, you can see that I've got a bookcase. I've got some things on it. And like I said, in the early days, this wasn't blurred out. So see when I'm doing this, you can kind of see this blurred out effect. And I'm going to share with you very shortly how I create that. And it doesn't require anything fancy as such, but I can get this blurred out effect. What's cool about that is, you don't have to worry too much about all of the stuff that's in your background, because you can kind of blur it out to some degree. However, creating a nice space behind you, you might have some promotional materials behind you. Some people like to use a green screen, which you can do using a platform like this, like StreamYard or Restream or any of those kind of cool platforms, streaming platforms that allow you to bring in a green screen, and you can have whatever background you like. You can transport yourself anywhere in the world if you have a green screen. Sometimes a green screen can be a little bit of a challenge because it can create, if I do this sort of movement quickly, you can sort of see, even with me using the blurred out effect, you can see that I'm kind of get a little bit blurry at certain points when I'm moving around. So it's important that, you don't move too quickly at that to create that kind of disappearing effect, let's call it that. The other is, you want to make sure that you're bringing in a color scheme. So you can see that in my background, I've got, my favorite color is blue, if you guys haven't figured that out already. But I've got like a nice tealy sort of, I don't know if you call it teal, but like a soft sort of blue colored bookcase in my background, and I've actually brought that through in my branding. Why? Because it's kind of my favorite color. My house is full of lots of blues and grays and those sort of beachy colors because I live near the beach. But you could bring that sort of color scheme into your shows, but also use it to create your background. You can do, fancy things on the wall. Bookcases are a great thing, a great way to be able to bring in a bit of personality and just style them up. And that will create you a place, a studio space that you can always go to. And that goes without saying. Once you've got your background set, well, you're going to need a desk, you're going to need, lighting, your camera, microphone, and those sorts of things. And I'll get into some of the ones that I use. And in my production toolkit, the Ultimate Toolkit, it will give you some very specific ones that you can use. And like I said earlier, the stuff that I'm sharing with you guys will cover all sorts of budgets. So if you're starting out, and you want to do it on a shoestring budget, I've got you covered. If you're a little bit more advanced and you want to spend a little bit more money on your production tools, no problem, they're covered too. So yeah, production space, a dedicated space is really important. Then secondly, you've got your basics, like I just mentioned, your computer or your smartphone. Now, don't think that you have to go out and spend a whole lot of money on the right kind of computer or multi-screens or, a smart decks or anything like that is going to really up the ante on your production. When you're starting out, just your laptop and or your phone. So you can actually do a live show or a podcast just from your phone. So don't let those sorts of things prevent you from speaking out and sharing your information, because God only knows people need, great people to be sharing their information in this world. So make sure that, that doesn't prevent you. So computer or smartphone, and you're going to set that up on a desk, of course. Okay, number 3, and this is particularly if you're doing a live show, is good internet connection. And sometimes, as much as we try as hard as we can to have the best internet connection, sometimes that doesn't always work. So we've just got to go with the flow. Again, don't take yourself too seriously. Know what to do if your internet goes down and have a backup. So you might use, you plugged into your home internet or Wi-Fi. Best to be plugged in if you can, so you get really good connection. But in the event that your studio, your office, or your home internet doesn't work, it fails you, you can always revert to the internet on your phone. So make sure that you've got that as a backup plan. Really important thing when interviewing or doing some sort of live show. Okay, the next thing you're going to need to have is some form of live streaming application. There's multiple different live streaming applications out there. Again, in the toolkit that I give you, it goes from, very little budget up to, those that have got a little bit more money to spend on the production tools. But if you're just getting started out, you could use something like BigView. However, my tool of choice is StreamYard, and then after today's show, I'll also drop a few links in the notes so that you guys can go and get access to the tools that I actually use. StreamYard I love. It enables me to go live on multiple different channels. I can record what I've got, use it for chop it up and use it for other purposes, and I'll also use it for multiple other things. So StreamYard is a fantastic tool to enable you to stream, to do your live streaming and or podcast if you want to. So you can record these sessions and then be able to download, I should say, just the audio version of your live show or recorded show, and then be able to upload that to your podcast platform, which is what I do on the regular. I want to make sure that I'm getting the best bang for my buck out of every single show that I do. I want to make sure that I can make the content stretch so that I'm not having to spend, hours and hours and hours on social media sharing my information. Then I've also got a pro, one of the pro tools that you could use is also Vimeo. So Vimeo, as much as it's a video hosting platform, you can also use that to record and, create and edit your shows or your podcast using some of the tools that the likes of Vimeo has. Now, I mentioned a little bit earlier about this whole, blurring out background sort of style stuff. That is actually an inbuilt feature inside of StreamYard. So again, like I said, StreamYard's my tool of choice, and it's got a whole lot of features in there that I'll cover on another show. In fact, I've got someone from StreamYard actually going to be joining me in a later show, and we'll do a bit of a rundown on what StreamYard is and how you can use it to your advantage for creating your content from an online perspective. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Hence the reason that I also say you need to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes, because I've got some really great guests coming up that are going to be sharing their tricks, their tools of the trade that really help them to grow their businesses. So inside of StreamYard, you've got the ability to be able to, blur out this background. And if I actually let me see if I can do it now. If I go into my settings, let me just jump into virtual background in here, and let me just go with none. Just going to switch it out. There you go. That's what the background looks like without the blur. And if I want to blur it out, I just simply click a click of a button, and boom, now I've got a bit of a blurred background. So you can kind of see how simple that was to be able to use that feature. Okay, number 5 on my list is earphones or a headset. So you can see that I'm using both a headset today and also a microphone. So I always use a headset, and it doesn't matter whether I'm doing a solo show or I'm doing a show with a guest. Great to be able to isolate your audio so you can actually hear it, and you're not going to get the feedback, particularly if you've got a guest with you on your show. And again, in the toolkit that I give you some examples of things that you can use. The headset that I use, because I also use it for any telephone conversations or combos that I have online. I've got a Jabra, and I really love this headset. I'm not using the headset for my audio right now. I'm using it for, so I can actually hear my voice coming back through my headset, but I'm using the microphone to share my voice with you guys. But, you can use a great headset for all sorts of different purposes, of course. And like I said, you want to make sure that you use a headset, whether you're just using the earbuds. Cheap budget way to do it, just use the earbuds that you got with maybe your iPhone or your smartphone, and just utilize those to get you going. And then down the track, you can always upgrade to something else. So making sure that you use those is really important. Okay, the next thing I've got on my list is microphones. So again, microphones, you can go from anything super budget right the way up to something that's, high end, that is going to give you really crisp audio. But again, I don't want you to prevent yourself from getting going. You can get microphones for, as little as $50. The microphone I started out with certainly was just a cheap microphone. It got me going. And then as you get going, you can start upgrading. And again, inside of the document that I give you, you can download them and just have a look at what I recommend. A couple on here. So I've got a USB mic, an ATR 2100 X USB, a little bit of an older mic, but again, gives you some great quality audio. And then you could go to a Blue Yeti. A lot of people use the Blue Yetis, or you could go to something like a Shure microphone, which is more higher end, a little bit more exy on the price. But again, often we get what we pay for. But again, it's not about having anything fancy. It's about getting your message and your information out there in a really, in a clear and a crisp way. I will say audio is really important when you're doing a podcast, because really it's the only way, people are listening to you. So you want to get good quality audio through your microphone when you're doing your podcast. On a show, you can kind of get away with a lesser quality mic, because people are able to use some other sensors to get, to build up what you're saying, to build up the picture of what you're talking about. So as you can tell now, if you're watching this live as a live show, you get to see me speaking. So, being able to lip read and all those sorts of things also kind of come into play. But if you're doing a podcast, you don't have that luxury. Okay, the next thing I'm going to say is a pop filter. So you can see this little gadget that I've got on my microphone here, and I would recommend that you use one of those. A pop filter is really going to, or a windsock of some sort. And again, inside the document, I'm going to give you a few different options with that. So I've got a mid-range pop filter that I use, and it just really does help to lessen the kind of sounds, the pop sounds that you hear from some people's voices. And it just does help to blend those out, and they're not so noticeable. So having a pop filter is also a really valuable thing that you could buy. They're not expensive. You can get them for as little as $5 on Amazon. Again, the sky's the limit. You can go and get something really super fancy if you want to. The next thing I'm going to say is a boom arm or a mic stand. It might sound really insignificant to have one of those, but I can tell you that you want to get one, because any movement on your mic is going to come through as sound in the audio. So you want to make sure that you've got one of those so that your microphone's not wobbling around, you're not holding it in your hand and getting some really strange sound coming through, because it will affect the sound in your audio. So make sure you get yourself, a boom arm to go with your mic. And there's all sorts of different ones. Often you can actually buy a set, which will come with the microphone, even the pop filter and the boom arm that goes with it. Okay, this was Sylvia's favorite. So she was asking me about lighting. So if you don't have any lights, the basic suggestion I would make to you if you're doing a live show is to actually set yourself up in front of a window. So you want your light source to be front facing. So you might want to get some fancy lights and have them behind you. So you can see I've got like a lava lamp, and I've got some other lighting in the background, and also some side lighting. So you might have 3 points of light, usually front facing, and then a couple on the side, which are like, what do we call them, hair lighting, or back lighting. So you might get that sort of thing ready to go. But again, if you're just starting out and you've got nothing, natural light is going to be your best friend. So just set yourself up in front of a window so that you get the lighting front facing. You don't want the lighting behind you. So in my apartment, I actually have windows right the way around me. So I've got front facing windows as well as windows behind me, and sometimes that can be a little bit of a problem with the glare. So the time of the day, if you're going to use natural light, time of the day that you do your live show actually becomes important, because it will depend on where the light, where the sun is facing, will give you different different levels of lighting on the subject matter, or whatever it is that you're showing. So just make sure that you take that into consideration. The other types of lighting, something really, really simple. If you're here in Australia, even Kmart has some really basic budget ring lights. So you can go and get yourself a ring light from there. I think you can get them for under $20. And the same, if you're elsewhere, you can buy them on Amazon. So just a really basic ring light will get you going. And then also you can start to upgrade to some other types of lighting, which will, really give you some great, great looking lights. Here I used to do a bit of camera work when I had my office, so I just used the soft light boxes that I used to use in my office. So you could just use soft lights if you have the ability to be able to get those. Okay, let's move on to some editing software. So what can you use if you want to just do some basic editing? Now, any of you that have got a Mac, you're probably very familiar with the fact that you've got some inbuilt editing software built directly into your Mac. You could use something like GarageBand or even iMovie to edit your stuff. Or you can go, with something like Audacity, which is a tool that you can get that's, starts off with a free version, and that you'll be able to edit your material with something like that. Then once you get a little bit more experience, you could go with something like Adobe. You could go with Camtasia, or any of those sorts of things to be able to edit your shows and or edit your audio. I'll cover some of that stuff off in some later shows, and talk you through how I go about editing. Do you have to edit the heck out of things? No, you don't. You can certainly get started with a live show. I don't have an opportunity to edit anything because it is live. I can edit after the fact, of course, but when I'm live, it's live, baby. There is no editing. If you muck up, you make a mistake, no problem. You just carry on and off you go again. All right, so some podcasting platforms. What are the podcasting platforms that, I've got one that I personally prefer to use, and that is called Buzzsprout. It just makes life so easy. It is my podcasting platform of choice. It enables me to link up with a whole lot of other major podcasting platforms, so I love to use that. You could also use something like Simplecast or Captivate. So again, I've got some of these outlined in the toolkit that I can share with you guys. So there's a whole bunch of things that I've covered today. In fact, there's about 10 different elements that I've covered today, from, the mindset, getting yourself set up, right the way through the different tools that you use. It's, it is a great list of 10 things that you can use to just get yourself started. I want as many of you guys to get started creating your own live show or your own podcast, because we just need really good, content to be shared. I'm sure you've all got, great life experiences, tools, resources, etc., that you would just love to share with somebody else. Just know that there is somebody else out there waiting to hear what you've got to say. Your voice matters. So what I want you to do is go away and unlock that voice within, and make sure that you get out there, and in 2022 that you have the opportunity to stand up, Stand firm and stand out with what it is that you are all about. Use your authenticity to create momentum and to share, the real you. So there you go, guys. There's my 10 tips, tools, resources that'll help you get started creating your own live show and or podcast. And today I promised you guys that I would give you, let me just get it up. I would give you the link to be able to go and get a copy of my ultimate guide. And where you need to go is to www.tracywithnoemwilson.com/live LS. What did I call it? Let me just grab it. What did we call this thing? 2 seconds. LSPT. There we go. All right. So let's just come back here. So LSPT. And I'll pop that at the bottom of the screen for you guys. So tracymwilson.com/LSPT. Live show production tools is where you can get a copy of that document, and it will just give you some ideas, some of the tools and the resources that I and my team use to be able to create our live shows professionally. All right, guys, so I hope you enjoyed today's show. Like I always say on the Unlocked Show, you just got to go and live your life unlocked, which means that you've got to speak your truth. You've got to find a way to be able to speak out and share your knowledge and your expertise with others, and just live your life in in an unlocked way, in a happy, be happy, go and do the things that you want to do. So that being said, I'm going to see you guys back for another episode of the Unlocked Show on Friday, and in which case I'm going to have an awesome guest with me. Other than that, I'll see you guys back here again Fridays 10 a.m. and Wednesday 10 a.m. Brisbane, Australia time. So have a fantastic rest of your week, and bye for now. See you guys.